Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today we done it. We cleared the entire atlas. Well, 7 maps to go for the bonus objective, but Awakener 8 Saros is down. League start is over. Took quite long this league. It's like day 7 of the league, I think, or day 6. I'm not sure. But I leveled up the accuracy stacker next to it, and I was like having a very rough time with this build. So first of all, before the map showcase, I do not recommend playing this build unless you have maybe 50 exalts, Everything below that will make the character look weird or not as good as it's supposed to be. Do I have 50 exalts invested? No, I don't. I'm probably somewhere, I would say, maybe 15 exalts, somewhere at that part. So I got it. No, actually more like 20 exalts, actually, thinking about the clusters, like 2x, 2x, here another 2x. The Indigon is probably like, I paid 4x, it's now 1x, okay? Linking this sort cost a shit ton, so I would say 20x, right? Is this build good for 20x? No, it's not. So if you see the map showcase before you're hammering your keyboard, lol, what the fuck is this shit build? 20x investment, and yeah. My Poison Blade Vortex is doing 10 times better with like half the investment. You might be right, but this is my league starter. This is my project, the Indigon mana stacking, stuff like that. This is not a budget build. I knew it in the first hand, but I was so excited about the Exsanguinate and stuff like that. And I see everybody doing this normal self-cast, whatever. And I said like, yo, I want to do something completely different. So I kind of knew what I get myself into. And it was very rough, but still I was able to pull it off, just to say the least. Good. We run a beach map here on Awakener 8, so you see how the mapping looks like. This is with Exsanguinate and chain support on custom crit on the weapon. And the way this works is basically the more mana we spend, the more damage we do. Okay, this is how Indigon works. And the way we're gonna do this is just by having an Enduring Mana Flask and stacking as many Mana Flask nodes as possible, stacking like 6 times Liquid Inspiration, which gives me Mana Recovery from Flask, 4 times Distilled Perfection for Mana Recovery from Flask and stuff like that. So my Mana Flask is regenerating a shit ton, okay? We also run Mind Over Matter and Agnostic. That means as soon as I lose life, I'm actually dropping mana and recover that amount of life, okay? Cyclone alone has like a very low mana cost, so I cannot even stack my Indigon when I just sit here and press Cyclone. It doesn't work. So to help the mana like bumping more or less, I have here on my auto walk my Vortex. So I hold down Vortex and then Cyclone, and I will spend more mana per second to get more spell damage. I'm far away from getting maxed out on the 2000%. I'm also not having my 6 procs per second because my attack speed is too low, my crit chance is too low. I currently run 88% hit chance, so all sources are too low, right? So that just tells me how insanely strong this build will actually get once you fix all the stats at some point, right? We're gonna do this at the end, basically. So basically, you Cyclone in, and once your Exsanguinate goes off with a chain, it actually chains very well. I would say this is even better than Arc, more or less, because later on with like an Awakened chain or something like that, it will actually do really insane damage and really insane chaining, basically, right? But hey, for my build at the moment, I'm like super happy. I just like need to hold down these 2 buttons. I keep my Flasks up and I just Cyclone into packs, and the Exsanguinate will take care of the rest. Obviously, cool would be an Explode Chest and other cool shenanigans, maybe even Storm's Gift Gloves, Impulsor to have some nice chain reaction. Even a Herald of Ash would actually make the visuals a lot better, but I don't want to reserve something, or at least not too much, just because I'm still mana stacking and I need my mana pool to actually bump out my my damage. So this is actually the map showcase. The map is almost clear, so we're just gonna kill the map boss. For a faster ramping, you can actually just use your Arcane Cloak, so in one hand it's offensive and defensive because we get a shield, but we also spend a ridiculous amount of mana. Then we also have Valrighteous Fire, and the boss damage is okay. But as you see, I'm like capping out on my Indigon. Not on the Indigon, but on my current mana pool. That's why I cannot get higher damage at the moment. So you have to think about the more you spend, it's more like 3,000 mana per second, no, 4,000 per second, to max out your Indigon, right? I don't even have a mana pool of 4,000. which doesn't necessarily mean that I cannot spend it, right? But it's actually rough. I also can run Righteous Fire permanently with Agnostic, but don't forget, the more mana I spend, since Righteous Fire is actually degenning me, I'm not losing something. Why? Because my Mana Flask keeps me alive, as well as Indigon also uses the Mana Flask to recover life as well. But it's all like sources that lowers my mana recovery. At some point, maybe I don't even care about anymore if Righteous Fire is on or not. But if I have it on right now, it is a nice damage boost because it still gives me, I think 39% more spell damage, which is insane. But therefore, I cannot ramp Indigon that well anymore, right? So about the ultimatums, I think this build is very good against ultimatum. There's just a couple bad things. Ruin is kind of bad. Not like Ruin in the ultimatum is not bad, okay? Because I'm cycloning around all the time anyway, so it's not a big deal. But it happened that today, randomly, I got into the Trial Master, and there was a Ruin guy following me all the time. If you're a spellcaster, you just kite the Ruin and just do damage, right? But if you're cycloning, and the Ruin dude comes always next to you, right? You're gonna fail, and that's a problem. Stormcaller runes are not the best either, but there is other things that we can completely ignore. For example, players has less area of effect. I don't think that that cares for me too much because my build doesn't scale with AoE. So I just like cyclone around. And you're gonna see that the bar fills actually quite fast. And then Choking Miasma Cloud deals chaos damage over time. Doesn't really affect me. The only thing when I stand in this cloud, my mana will deplete quite fast, okay? But other than that, even though I have negative chaos resistance, it should not be any issue to just cyclone through it. Ruin, as I said, I don't want to do. Then Unlucky Crits, I wouldn't do because I'm custom crit build, so we're just gonna go for the next Choking Miasma. It can technically be, or happens, that I'm actually getting randomly one-shot. And this is, I'm running Mind Over Matter. That means the damage that I get will also affect my mana. But as you see, it's like very fast clearing. That's why these screens pop up that fast. But just to finish the sentence, if my Indigon drains me down and then I get a hit, although 30% of the damage will go over mana, but if I don't have mana, I will actually just get one-shotted. This is something that will not be an issue once we have better gear, more mana available. Then we have limited area, doesn't really matter too much because I'm like cycloning around at the middle anyway, so having a smaller area only is like very shitty when you have Stormcaller runes, for example. So always like popping your damage and just try to not like get like super down on mana. That can actually really kill you. Okay, now we have Choking Miasma rank 3, which is actually not really that good. And there is the one shot. Well, happens. If I would say, you know, I've obviously done a lot of these. I'm not skipping them anymore because my character is good enough to do them most of the time. But these random one-shots do actually happen. These rare packs in those ultimatums are like very cruel, I would say. Similar to the ones that you spawn when you have influence, and then the Saros rare packs come. Like they are quite heavy as well. But as I said, like people that say, yo, I never down like ultimatum, yeah, either they only run like low tier maps, or you know, you have to have a very tanky character to just like easily face tank all of these monsters at the same time. Anyways, I did explain a lot of the build in the previous videos. I just wanna, like, the POB of this build is in the description below. As I said, I do not recommend, so I'm not feeling that I have to explain too much about the build, but I still want to go over certain things that I wanted to implement in the build, like Petrified Blood, Berserk, like Divergent Berserk basically, and other things. Why did I not use them anymore, as well as things that I found out while playing this build and while gearing this build. So the first thing is Cyclone mana cost. So my assumption was, before, like, there is no POB. I have not made any, like, end game POB where I could say, like, yo, at some point I'm gonna have, like, 150 million damage and stuff like that. I completely built this out of my head. I also sometimes swap in Reap instead of Cruelty, and then I play Exsanguinate and Reap on Cast and Crit both at the same time. What is better? I don't know. I feel like that the single target is a little bit better. The clearing doesn't really suffer at all, so most of the time I actually play that. But on the other hand, once it's like super tanky monsters, I feel better if I have like a 6-link Exsanguinate instead, right? So, but play now with Cast and Crit? No, with the critical strike chance. That's what I meant. So, mana cost. Voidbringer. So the base mana cost of Cyclone is, I think, 6, you know? With 6 mana cost, you can Cyclone forever. You will never get anything out of your Indigon because you're never going to increase the mana cost. Because you only get increased mana cost of skills every 200 mana you spend. So with 10 attacks per second and a 6 mana cost, that's 60 mana per second. So after 4 seconds, I would get the first mana increase, but therefore I'm already losing the mana increase already because 4 seconds have passed, right? So you need to find other ways to increase your mana cost. One thing was like Forethought or the jewels, but they don't really bring anything. Or at least not a lot. They bring later on something once you start stacking, but in the base here, I don't think it brings anything. Let me actually pick up some regrets over here. So let's see what happens if I remove those 3, which is increased mana cost, like the last 2, okay? So now I'm having 6 mana cost, I remove those 2, and I have now 6 mana cost. It doesn't change anything. So how to increase the mana cost? I mean, obviously once Indigon stacks and the base mana cost of Cyclone gets higher, then it affects it, but not in the start. So Voidbringer does actually have total mana cost of skills. So my assumption was if I equip those, my Cyclone goes from 6 mana cost to 84 mana cost, which is a lot more. But the problem is, both Indigon and those nodes will still only affect the base mana cost. That means it's 60% increased mana cost. So if I would say, let's say I have now, I think 84 mana cost. So 84 times 0.6 would be, I would get 50 mana cost after using it 1 time. Yeah, 1 time. So my Cyclone has like, let's say 8 attacks per second. Would be after cycloning, after spending mana for Cyclone for 1 second, which is 8 Cyclones more or less, my mana cost should be somewhere at about 500. The 400 that I get increased plus the 80 from the base, right? So what happens after 1 second? It's a 97. Okay, so if I just completely like Cyclone, it's on 130. So basically, those things do not affect it. My assumption was that the mana cost will actually skyrocket if I use the Voidbringer gloves. That doesn't work. So I can use that and it will actually help me once it stacks up. But I also have to like use Vortex to spend more mana and more mana and more mana, as well as the Arcane Cloak, to actually have a chance to deplete my mana and get all the spell damage out of it. And then my Cyclone is still on like 260, 270 mana cost per second. Or at least per use, basically, right? So then it would cost me over like 1,000, 1,500 or something per second. But as I said, this was the first thing that was wrong. The next thing that I cannot showcase because I don't have the Timeless Jewel, but let's talk about Chainbreaker. I was hoping, for example, if we use the, let's just open a new PUB here. So if we go to the Berserk over here, right? If, it basically says here on the Crave the Slaughter, gain 1 rage on hit with attacks no more than 0.3 seconds. I was hoping that the Berserk will have an internal cooldown. Remember, they patched it and now it costs 3 plus 3 rage cost for your skills. That means every time I use a skill, I pay 3 rage. And if you have Divergent Berserk or at least Chainbreaker, you'll lose your rage, basically. If you not activate your Berserk, you're just your base rage, right? So the problem is, okay, it spends 3 rage per second. So the problem is, Cyclone has an attack rate with like Blood Rage and Flasks and whatnot, maybe like 10 attacks per second. That also means I would spend over 30 rage per second. And this does not work. So I tried it, I once had this jewel, but I just tipped Cyclone once and my 50 rage is gone, you know? There is no way I'm gonna bring in Chainbreaker. The next thing I wanted to test was the mana cost of skills. Remember, it was mana cost of skills as far as I remember, but let's say channeling skills. Now it says channeling skills have -2 to total cost. What my assumption was, if my skills cost 100 mana and 3 rage, that with this craft, or at least like with the higher one, with the rank 3, with -3 I think, or -2, doesn't matter, then the rage cost will also be lower. Should be. But it's not. So all this idea about Chainbreaker, Berserk, Divergent Berserk, Cast on Crit, whatnot, what I had in the start, does not work. So, what was the next thing that I want to talk about? Petrified Blood. So, I said, like my Omeoken boots, I lose 7% mana per second, right? Plus, Righteous Fire will also drain my mana. Plus, Petrified Blood, once it's active on my life. Now with SS Worms, it soaks up way too much. It would make me tankier, I think, but the problem is, once I activate my Petrified Blood, I'm permanently draining 20%, which you don't see because my mana flask, but this is what happens. So, 20% over here, 7% over here, plus the potential Righteous Fire that I want to use for the spell damage, right? I can sustain it with the Flask on, but you also have to think, Indigon mana stacking, the more mana I spend, the more damage I get. But having Petrified Blood with like permanently agnostic running and my boots and my Righteous Fire means I have overall, with my mana flask, less recovery overall. That means I cannot get as much mana as I would like to have, which therefore my Indigon doesn't give me a lot of spell damage. So this would be the option with low life. But now I would say, is it worth? 30% more spell damage is really strong, don't get me wrong. But in the other hand, I will not get drained down all the time based on low life. And I also, this makes me stack up my Indigon more. So maybe at some point, when you have like really a lot of mana regen from your flasks and so on, and you can like easily sustain and out regen your Indigon basically at some point, then yes, then I would actually take Pain Attunement, low life with Petrified Blood. But as long as I don't reach the state, this state, there is no point for that. So there's a lot of things on this build that did not work out the way I actually thought it would be, and that I wouldn't say makes the build a lot worse, but it would have been a lot better as well, right? But as I said, this is like 15x. If I would try this again with a 50x or 100x alts, right, this might change completely, right? So, mana cost we covered, the rage we covered, the petrified blood we covered, how we get up as much as mana cost as possible we covered with Vortex. So don't forget, if you play something like that, if you press Cyclone and then use Vortex on your force move, right, it would stop Cyclone and then spawn the Vortexes. Other way around, you'd first walk and then Cyclone, so it does both at the same time. So I'm just holding down both buttons, left and right click, and then I just Cyclone around and I will basically spawn that all the time. Better would be a 6-link. I have your Hex Touch with vulnerability. If I would have a 6-link chest, I would actually go for Vortex, Awakened Hex Touch, like Arcane Search maybe, Vulnerability, Punishment, and maybe even Arcane Cloak in this setup. So both my Arcane Cloak and the Vortex will drop like a high-level Arcane Search. It's still level 1 because I forgot to level it up because it was usually meant to be in another setup. As I said, my links are not even filled out. It's a complete tryout build, but hey, at the moment, it's fine. There is no expensive like gems in here. All the these ones are like 2020 uncorrupted. I can actually try to corrupt this one. Maybe we're lucky once, man. Maybe we're lucky once. We're not. Okay, never mind. There is no alternate quality. The only alternate quality that I bought was basically Petrified Blood, the anomalous version. So instead of 40% damage prevented, it's 45, but therefore I get more damage over time. But hey, I'm agnostic. Damage over time, I don't care about that. So that's fine. I can easily out-sustain that. And it was true. Like, I think with the Petrified Blood, even though having low life and not even like 1500 life, I felt pretty tanky overall. Good. Flask setup. Silver Flask doesn't matter, it's an Onslaught Flask, but I do have Omeoken Boots, which gives me Onslaught, but it was the cheapest one with the avoid being stunned. I would be stun immune, I'm still not because I don't have enough Flask effect yet. That means if I pop my Flask now, I see I'm on stun, where is it? 80% stun avoidance. So once I get more Flask effect, which that being probably Anointed, Aqueous Accelerant for more Flask effect, then also this small node over here with more Flask effect, don't forget, more level is better. Then I would actually be stun immune with that Flask, right? The Diamond Flask, I think, is kind of necessary at the moment. Better would be a Bottled Faith, that would help out a lot. You could also opt in the efficacy support, the increased critical strike chance. The best damage support is Control Destruction in that place, but lowering my crit chance when I'm already struggling with crit is kind of not the best idea, right? Then I'm using currently 3 Grand Spectrums, which give me more critical strike chance per Grand Spectrum. So I'm using 3 of those. So if I have 1, it's 25. If I have 2, it's 50 plus 50. And if I have 3, it's 3 times 75% critical strike chance. And with the Grand Spectrums and now the Power Charges, since I have the Liquid Inspiration, 25% chance to gain a Power Charge when you use a Mana Flask. And since I have multiple of those, I use 1 Mana Flask, I get Power Charges. So I can just use like 3 times the Flask and I'm just getting my Power Charges, which also helps. So the base idea, what I would say when you talk about the proc ratio and stuff like that. So I would basically say, I think 6.66 procs per second would be currently without cooldown recovery speed and stuff like that. And that would mean if I would have 12 attacks per second with my Cyclone and 50% critical strike chance, I would technically, in a perfect world, get my 6 crits. Obviously, sometimes you're lucky, you crit 8 times, but you can only soak up 6 procs. Sometimes you're unlucky, you only get 4 procs per second. So, basically, the more the better. And this is also with 100% hit chance, right? Just to opt this one in as well. So just to give you a small comparison. So, that means I cannot really increase my base, we're not talking about Indigon, we talk about this one here now. So that means critical strike chance, I even higher my attacks per second, or I higher my critical strike chance to keep the ratio. But the critical strike chance doesn't bring me a lot, because I only use this for critting for my custom crit setup. But what does bring me a lot is attack speed. The more attack speed, the more mana spent, the more Indigon spell damage, right? But that also means if I only have 10 attacks per second, not 41, please, hello, 10 attacks per second, I would actually need a higher crit chance, so I keep the ratio, right? If I then would, for example, have like 15 attacks per second, then I can actually have a lower crit chance, because I'm just attacking way more often. Don't forget, we have a capped proc rate. So the problem is, right now, if I keep this aspect ratio with 12 attacks per second, 50% hit chance, and 100%, 50% crit chance, and 100% hit chance, that would be optimum. What do I have? Currently, since I don't have hits cannot be evaded on my weapon, and I'm forced to use precision for now, I am currently having 88% hit chance. So, it's 12% chance, like 1 out in 10 hits basically misses. Then, instead of like 12 attacks per second, I'm currently, I think, on like 9 attacks per second. And my critical strike chance at the moment is around about 40. So that means that I'm probably getting like 3 procs per second. And for the Indigon, I still, have too low mana cost. I need higher mana cost, like a higher mana pool to actually get my most spell damage out of it. So I'm like doubling my DPS when I fix that stat. I'm also adding the base damage of it once I fix the Indigon mana problem issues here, right? So I'm just saying, I think this build has crazy insane potential if you have the right amount of currency. For me, it was rough, as I said, but League Start for me is over now. Week 1, Awakener 8, done with my League Starter, which is great. Definitely not a League Starter, but I'm still happy that I made it. And I can definitely just say, like, it's great to have a build like self-made and then still be able to clear all content with it on a lot less budget than I would actually like to invest into this character. Good. I'm tired. It was a long ass day. It's like 1 in the morning already. So I'm gonna leave you with the Path of Building. I'm gonna leave you with the Saurus kill from today. It is a trash kill. It takes forever. I do know about that. Don't worry. You don't need to like comment like 10 times in a row that my DPS sucks and that I died in the run and stuff like that. I'm aware of that. I have like over 10,000 hours in this game, I do know. But I still made it, and that's the point that actually matters. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.
My mana is gone.
Still sane.
I'm not up to that just yet.
What's this? A real challenge? You've finally caught my attention. others found strength in their projections, they became reliant on them. I am not so foolish. Die. Be silent. Really interesting enough to warrant all this pain. Die.
My mana is gone.
Be silent. Die. Yet see the futility of your efforts. Die.
I'm not up to that just yet. Do you insist on continuing to exist?
There's only horror.
Die.
This city is nothing. Creation itself. Fury of the cosmos. You are nothing.
On the edge of death, my heart races. I am alive.
I have seen beyond everlasting fire.
Belong for
Non-existence.
My mana is gone.
I have seen beyond everlasting fire.
feel the thrill of
The void.
I'm not up to that just yet.